Are ghosts real? Several recent encounters suggest there might be more things in heaven and earth than we can dream of.
So are werewolves just a Hollywood creation, or do half-man, half-wolf creatures really exist? Now, tonight, we kick off our Conspiracy Theory Month series, which was a...
The legend of the vampire actually goes back for centuries, and it exists in some form or another in almost every culture. In fact, some people believe the first vampire story was in the Bible.
Well, for decades, only crackpots and crazy people believed in UFOs. That's what I thought anyway. And then in recent years, it turns out that governments have been taking them seriously all along.
Try and clear up an ancient mystery with the help of a prominent veterinarian who says she can prove that Bigfoot exists and that he's related to all of us.
New reports, 5 pilots coming forward over the weekend saying they've had multiple mid-air encounters with high-flying, fast-moving objects.
Good evening, folks, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Celestial Oddities. As always, I'm your host, Garrett Jagaman, and I want to thank you for tuning in tonight. If you are listening out there, whether live or after the fact, make sure you click the like, share, and follow buttons across all the social media platforms. The more that you do that, the more that it moves us up the podcast community rankings, the more people that find out about the show. Hell, it keeps you in touch with what's going on with the show and allows you to watch past episodes and just really allows us to do bigger and better things. So please make sure you do that. It really helps us out. You do have the option of downloading the episodes as well. So if you're on the go and don't have time to always stream it or don't have Wi-Fi, data, I should say, download it when you have Wi-Fi and you can listen to it on the go as a regular song or track, which is always very nice. If you missed our most recent episode, Daniel and myself put out an episode of Paranormal Guys the other day that was on Deja Vu, and we have an upcoming episode coming next week on Monday, which will be about my interview with a spiritual teacher, Garrett, when we went through the radical undoing process, which is pretty phenomenal, folks. If you don't know what that is, it's a form of meditation / exercise that unlocks parts of your brain that you just don't know about yet. And I got to go through it prior to the show, and it was a phenomenal experience. And then the following show, we got the Black-Eyed Children episode. So make sure you're checking that out. But tonight, we got a doozy for you as well. Make sure you share it around to your friends. We got Chris Wax in the house tonight, and he is a film director, a writer of multiple different short films and things with different networks that he's working with. And we're about to talk about his movie Case 347. And I think you guys are going to love it. It's a found footage alien horror film. I got the pleasure of sneak peeking this before it released on the 3rd of March across digital platforms, and I love it. So we're going to talk about that in just a minute. We do want to thank our sponsors, Cryptid TV. If you're not familiar with them, make sure you like their Facebook and YouTube page. They are an underground community of all things paranormal and supernatural. It's a great, comfortable, safe environment for you to go talk to like-minded people, share your ideas without ridicule or people making fun of you. Because unfortunately, if you're someone who thinks outside the box, you have a lot of people that are naysayers and want to down you for your ideas. This is a community that doesn't happen. So make sure you check them out, and thank you for everything that you do for us, guys. So, we do bring you a show anywhere from 3 to 5 times a month, depending upon material and depending upon availability. And this month is certainly jam-packed with different episodes. So as I said, make sure you're watching both, future and present episodes as well as our past episodes as well, because there's some doozies in there. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about Chris, and then we're going to go ahead and jump into the interview with him. Over the years, Chris Wax has worked to develop, produce, and write for major companies and studios such as Base FX in China, Infinite Studios in Singapore, Sony Pictures Television, the Walper Organization, New Wave Entertainment, and Sketch Films, to name a few. He has also produced, written, and directed independent films, documentary pilots, and directed an award-winning web series. The past couple of years, Chris has been working in development with Sony Pictures Television, top executives as a writer and producer. Chris and his Rotten Whiskey production label are currently in the script stage for a feature film that will release in early 2020. And folks, that just released on March 3rd, as I said, and that's what we're here to talk about tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Wax. How you doing tonight, brother?
I'm great, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, not a problem at all. I was glad to get you on. I'm glad you were able to clear some time for me to be able to pick your brain tonight to talk to you about your new project and what everybody has in store for them. As we were talking about right before we jumped on, absolutely love the film. Think you guys did a phenomenal job with it. I liked a lot of elements that you did that I haven't seen before, and it really resonated with me that someone in the supernatural and paranormal community, some of the elements in the movie and just the overall project. So kudos to you for everything you did.
Thank you, man. We really tried to do something different within the genre, within the found footage genre. Also, at the same time, sticking to kind of the guidelines and rules of what found footage should be and means for people. And I think we pulled it off.
No, I really think you did, because here's the thing. In found footage films, you can either do it justice or you're going to bomb it. It's one or the other. There really is no gray area in between, I don't think. And you guys kept it to the roots where it gave all the elements that it needed to have in a found footage film. But as you said, it blended in a little bit more, a little bit extra on top, some sprinkles on the cake that gave it the feel that it needed to resonate. So when you finish the movie, you're like, all right, okay, I dig that. It isn't one of those things where like, wow, I really had hope for this and it let me down. At least for me, I can only speak from my point of view. But when I finished watching it, I'm like, wow, these guys did that justice. That is how a found footage alien film should go. If I were to picture one in my mind, that would be it.
And I obviously agree. It's my film, but I think like anything else, I think some people are going to watch it and they're going to feel the way that we feel, and there's other people that are probably going to hate it. And I think that's just the way that art works, and that's the way that film works, and I think that's the beauty of it, obviously. There's a lot of found footage films that I've watched over the years, and I really did my research before getting into one, and some I thought really blew it, and they really veer away from the reality of a found footage. They start cutting to a camera too that doesn't exist, and they start, all of a sudden you have an aerial shot that shouldn't be there, and so I really wanted to stick to the dynamics of keeping people in that reality and being able to enjoy that ride.
Well, it's an easy thing to kind of lose yourself there, because I've watched found footage that you said, as you mentioned, camera 2 jumps in, and there's aerial views that don't make sense, and it's like they hook, line, and sinker people in with the found footage title, and then you start to watch, and once you're about 15 minutes in, you can start switching on them, and most people don't even notice. They're just like, at that point, they're locked in and like, whatever. But when you're really paying attention, you say, that doesn't make sense. Like, how would that doesn't make sense right there, and it starts to kind of really deplete the film, whereas you guys made sure that your angles and the way that you captured it made sense to the film and to the project that you were doing.
And you're absolutely right. Some people don't even notice. I remember sitting next to someone and saying, "Did you see that? That just jumped to a camera that's never been established. That's just completely taken me out of the reality." And it's nice for people that are purists enough that they're going to enjoy this film. I think, I kind of made this film for me being anal about that, and obviously it resonated with you. And like I said, for the people that this will work for, I think it'll work really well.
I think it will as well. Like I said, I think that it'll stick to them. You're always going to have naysayers. I mean, if everybody liked your stuff, there wouldn't be a point, because there wouldn't be the fuel that we need to continue to do what we do and keep pushing ourselves. So I always embrace the haters and say, thank you for doing so, because you made me a stronger and better me. So if anybody has anything
Absolutely.
to say about it, oh well. But
yep.
Folks, if you are listening out there, one thing I didn't mention earlier, and I wanted to make sure I kind of jump back on, is that if you are listening, you can jump onto Spreaker.com or through the Spreaker app, and that not only allows you to listen to the show, but you can comment during the show, ask our guest questions, just kind of comment along with the things we're saying and be a part of it. I read a lot of that off, and I do read off questions as they come in. So don't be shy. Please do so. We always encourage it. But you can also listen anywhere else podcasting is aired. So you can listen to us on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, you name it, we are on it. But the only way we're going to see your messages is through Spreaker, and once again, that is Spreaker. Just wanted to drop that quick note in case anybody out there wanted to jump in and certainly interact with the show. Now, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into film? I mean, what led you into doing this art style?
It was a little bit of a roundabout thing, but it certainly wasn't overnight. I've been an artist my whole life. I started drawing when I was 5 years old, And that really became comic books and that type of stuff really became my passion. And I was an art and English major in high school. In New York, you got to be able to do that. And from there, I went to art school for my undergrad and started shifting gears there into film. And that slowly started moving me in that direction of writing, focusing more on writing and less on visual art, more on behind the camera and less on with a pencil and pen. And then my first job out of school was at Miramax Films in the art department. And I really just fell in love with film there. I went to work on a feature film after that. And as soon as I touched ground on that set, I just said, this is it, man. The culmination of the lighting department, the actors, the makeup artists, everybody coming together with one singular vision. I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the collaborative process of seeing a story be told. And that was it. I was hooked. So for the last 15 years, that's what I've been dedicated to, and just continuously writing and filming. And whether I'm working for a network or a studio or whatever, or doing my own independent thing like Case 347, that's been my journey.
No, that's awesome, and it's great that you've been able to kind of live that dream. And it's funny because sometimes our arts find us and we don't find them. And you just kind of fall into it at the right time, the right place to be doing something. You're like, I kind of dig this. And then you really dig your heels in, and then you're like, whoa, like I just found what I want to do the rest of my life. I know I certainly found that calling a while back, and it's a good thing to discover. Some people, unfortunately, never find it, and if you do, you're certainly lucky to have done so.
I agree, and I think a lot of people limit themselves with fear, and I'm certainly somebody who's had to battle my fears and my own demons over the years. And I just think if you're a creative mind, which most people are, there's a place for you. Not just one place. There's probably a million places. If you're somebody who draws, then chances are you're going to have a decent eye for other things, or you're going to have a decent mind for other things, and vice versa. A writer, it could be. I think art transcends medium, honestly,
It does. It absolutely does. And I think everyone has some type of amazing artistic skill, even if they don't know it. It's there. They just might not have discovered yet or ever got to really, sharpen the blade. If you don't practice on it, it's not going to be good. And obviously it takes work. I mean, you don't just pick up, film and just automatically overnight crush a movie, you know what I mean? Or a microphone. So it takes time, but everyone has that skill. They just need to find it. They need to polish it out. And it's always great. And that's why I do what I do with the show and with my company and organization that I run, is because I appreciate art. And it's like, if you find someone that you can help in any type of way, whether it's getting you 5 new fans, whether it's getting you 5,000, it's nice to be able to push that person's art and say, hey, I enjoy this. Why wouldn't I want to share it with someone else?
How gratifying is that, right?
Oh, it's great. I love it. I mean, it's just like, what? And then I have someone to talk to about it, because then I can be like, hey, did you see Case 347? That is absolutely amazing. Right now, it's just me, you know what I mean? So if I can share it with my fans, then I have someone to talk to about it. People message me and send emails after this, and they're going to say, hey, I checked that out. And that's what's great, is there's going to be people simply from tonight's conversation, they go check out the film, and that's what we want. And if you get to have a good time in the meantime and kick it a little bit, then that's always a good thing.
It's win-win.
It is a win-win in my book. So so how long was it since the time you started that you got kind of brought into your first project with a network or with a bigger company that you weren't so independent?
I got really lucky and unlucky, I guess, simultaneously. A kid that I grew up with had written a book. He was a baseball player turned baseball announcer and sports writer, and he wrote a book. And the book was called Minor Moments, Major Memories, and it was about all different big league stars and their recounting of their favorite experience in the minor leagues before they were famous, before anybody knew who they were. I thought that was such a fun idea, and he wrote that book and got it published and everything. And I had moved out to L.A., and I'm doing the classic L.A. story. I'm sleeping on somebody's dining room floor, and for months at a time, and I didn't have anything except my laptop, and the only thing I really had to do in my downtime when I wasn't working one of 2 jobs was write. And I told him, I said, I think that would be a really cool story to adapt if we turned that into a television pilot. And instead of having it be Derek Jeter's story or Cal Ripken's story or whoever might be telling the story out of the 160 names he has in that book, we'll just turn it into fictionalized characters, and these could be the stories that drive this series. And we optioned that series really early to the Wolper organization at Warner Brothers. And I hadn't been in LA for, I don't know, maybe 6 months, a year maybe at most, before I had optioned my first pilot. And it was the first thing I ever wrote on my own. So yeah, so it was a big shot in the arm to say, shit, maybe this is what I should be doing with my life, because I'd never ever had that type of what I'd even call success, where somebody says, hey, this is amazing, we want it. Sadly enough, that didn't go anywhere. But later on, years later, I optioned that same pilot, and then we rewrote and developed that pilot at Sony Pictures Television for many years, and had different producers and stars attached to it over the years. And obviously, that didn't go either, because nobody's ever heard of this show. But that's the nature of studio development with television stuff, which can be really frustrating and can probably deter people and make them want to quit. And in the meantime, any years that I had that were really slow, that felt like they weren't going anywhere, I was developing different stuff like documentary television and independent film. I'd done the short films and web series and stuff like that. So it's been a weird long journey in LA, but it happened fast in one capacity, and then pulled back in another,
Well, it's a double-edged sword. Like you said, it happened so quickly from the gate. I mean, you came out and boom, it was like you hit a home run right out the gate, which is awesome. And no pun intended, because it was a baseball movie, but
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you knocked it out the park your very first time. Even though it didn't pan out, it certainly made you fall in love with it. And I think that was the point of that movie, maybe, or to that film. Maybe it wasn't supposed to go as far as you hoped, but that was the nail in the coffin that led you into this, and I think that's probably what its purpose was.
Exactly. If you're going to look at it in kind of a serendipitous way, even the people I met along that course wound up being the people I'm still working with today. So it's really wild.
It is, man, and that's what I've learned, and a lot of people don't take time to appreciate that or really recognize that in life, that they always want to weigh on the failures that they had, but they don't realize that along the path of failure, they succeeded in making a lot of other connections that truthfully led them to where they are now. So sometimes you have to take that fail in order to succeed, and I think a lot of people just don't take the time to recognize that.
I couldn't agree more, and you're right. You kind of can fall into a despair in your failures. And if you learn along the way that failure always leads to, that it's such a corny thing that, the idea that every door that closes, another, window opens, or another door opens, or whatever the classic saying is. But it is so true. Even if it takes a year or 2 years to see what it is that comes from that failure, or what it is that comes from that door that closed, if you just keep your head up and keep going at it, whatever it is that you're doing, I do believe that the next thing always comes.
It does, and I mean, sometimes, you have to recognize that, because it does happen, and then you're like, wow, that didn't pan out, and then you kind of see what would have happened if it did, and then you're like, oh, thank God that didn't pan out. Sometimes it's a blessing as well, so, no, that's great that you certainly, kind of just jumped headfirst right in, from the start. And, that's something, as you said, with Hollywood and with a lot of filming and releases, that has to be frustrating, especially as a director and a writer, to, not only have one, but maybe have multiple things that you have a company interested on, and it maybe even start to take up off the ground, but then it never actually goes anywhere, just because there's so many things being filmed that so much stuff gets benched.
I can't tell you how many times that I would walk out of a meeting high-fiving, one of my friends or my partners and saying, this is it, my God, this is the thing that we've been waiting for all these years. And a lot of times you're starving in between these projects. So you're really counting on some of these wins along the way. And not just for myself. I've seen it with my friends, my colleagues, my partners. Everybody has these roller coasters of like, oh my God, we got it. And then, a month later, like, that deal's not going to go through. And you're devastated from those things. I actually heard a podcast with the comedian Bill Burr. This is years ago. And at the time, still, I think Bill Burr is one of the best comedians, out there. And he was talking about his frustrations on having 3 different pilots keep getting to the point where it looks like they're going to get greenlit and then being canceled or being, pushed back or whatever. And I'm thinking to myself, my God, Bill Burr is probably one of the biggest names in comedy right now. And he's having this problem, you know? So it is. It's a lesson, I guess, in just being persistent and being patient and you know, constantly pushing and creating, as we've talked about earlier.
Yeah, because it's certainly hard in certain fields out there to get everything released, and people don't look at it from that angle. They see what's just released, and that's what the fans like. That's what the people are going after, but they don't realize, okay, that person had how many projects fall through that were equally as good. They just for some reason didn't make it. Or that band just put out an album and sure, it was great, but how many amazing songs did their record label not let them release that would have been better than everything on this album? But you know what? It didn't make the cut. Sometimes it's hard. You know what I mean? You write that song or you film that project and it's just, you know, it's not the right time or right place. But as you said with the baseball film, it kind of circumvented back around, even though it didn't work again the second time. Sometimes years later it will come back around and work perfectly. It just happens to fit at that time.
You're absolutely right. And there's people I know personally. I don't know if you're familiar with the band Group Love, but the singer Christian is from the same area as me in New York, and we share a lot of common, really close friends. I've only met Christian a couple times personally, but he had a band called Alok before Group Love, and Alok was awesome. It was such a good band, and it didn't hit. It didn't pick up for whatever reason. And it wasn't until so many years later that Group Love just last year was touring with Imagine Dragons, and now this year seems to really be hitting a stride where their popularity is really booming. And
awesome.
He's my age, you know, but you've seen these guys really work at it for 20 years. And it's so glad that I'm so happy to be able to point to a success story that I know. And because that's so inspiring to me, because I know there's been so many times, and I hope that we can inspire even just one listener. There's been so many times that I thought, man, screw this. I'll do anything but continue to fail. And it's nice that I'm coming off of a release of a movie this week that, you know, even though it's an independent movie, it's a movie that I financed with my company to make sure that it came out. It still feels good. It feels good to have, you know, a win in a way, you know, something you can point to and say, yeah, we did that.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's out, it's seen, whether it's perceived well or not, which I think it certainly will be. It doesn't matter at that point because you say, you know what, it's done. I was able to bring this vision to light and release it. Now, obviously, the goal is to have a lot of people check it out, but I always look at this project. As a musician, I put out 6 professional full-length albums at this time, and it's like whenever I put out an album, whether it strikes or not, I'm like, okay, that's my baby, and it is out now, and whatever happens, happens. So...
it's the best feeling. The best feeling to be able to point
in the world.
to that.
It's like your child, you know what I mean? Like you look at that movie or that project, and that's you. That's you defined into your art.
Yeah.
No, why don't you tell us
It's
how
true.
you got into these style of movies? Because I remember you mentioned to me earlier that there's a few projects you're working on that are in this kind of realm as well. But how did you get into the found alien footage? I mean, obviously you said you wanted to do it justice, but when you were picking topics and when you were writing out this project and envisioning it, what made you pick alien found footage?
Well, it's funny. I always loved the genre, and I wanted to try to create something within that. You know, it's been 21 years since the Blair Witch Project and 13 years since Paranormal Activity. So we haven't seen a movie like that in a really long time. And you have to think about there's kids out there right now that were born 13 years ago, were born 21 years ago. They've never seen or heard of these films. So I thought it'd be fun to kind of bring that back and to bring that genre back to a generation that might not have experienced what I experienced. And I've never seen it. There's been a couple of little films that have kind of touched on the alien conspiracy in the found footage genre. I think one was based around Area 51, and the other one kind of around the Phoenix Lights. And I just didn't feel like either one did what Blair Witch did or what Paranormal did. So I wanted to kind of take my own swing at it. So that this is that. And as you said, I do write in a real myriad of stuff, you know, whether it's really pure sci-fi fantasy or, paranormal, really, you know, pure paranormal. I wanted to kind of try my hand at this.
Now, so you've always just kind of had a fascination then personally with the supernatural and with the paranormal side of things. I know you said as a kid you were into comic books and the sci-fi side of things. Is that what kind of fueled this fire to follow this path?
Yeah, I always loved, even my grandmother, I think it's for generations, I think people have really enjoyed the idea of watching a movie and having the movie take you somewhere else, take you from your reality, and take you on a journey. And, Case 347 might not be the most enjoyable journey because it is a little bit of a scary film and deals with a little bit of a psychological, mess with the mind, but it still is a journey and it still is fantastical. And I don't know, that's probably the stuff that really pulled me in as a kid, E.T. and Close Encounters and, Fire in the Sky, all of those types of films that you make your mouth just hang open as you're watching them.
Well, they certainly do. I grew up during that time period as well and loved every film that you just named right there. And I was always kind of a fan of the alien sci-fi movie, whether good aliens, whether bad aliens. It always just kind of fascinated me, and I think it fascinates a lot of people because it's the unknown, because most of us do believe, whether you've seen something, whether you've not seen something, whether you full-blown are just a nut for alien side of things or you are completely out of that realm. I think everyone in the back of their mind knows that there has to be. I mean, there are some skeptics out there, but there has to be something else out there with that big of a universe, with, all these planets, all these stars, all this galaxies and everything out there. How could there not be something else there? And how could we think that there's not a good chance from the things that we can see in history and some of the technology that we have so long ago that there hasn't been visitation from somewhere else?
We don't even know what's at the bottom of our own ocean. Forget about what might be in infinite space, So I agree. I think the questions of what might be are really fun things to explore in film or literature or anything else. And it's any film that you walk away from that makes you continue to think about the film that you just watched, I think probably, did what it was supposed to do. And hopefully we do that as well.
No, and you certainly did, because one of the paranormal elements, and I don't want to give any spoilers away to anybody, but one of the paranormal elements, as I said earlier, is the topic of one of our upcoming episodes. And it's been one that people... Yes, absolutely. And we've been having fans ask for that for a while, and it's actually one of the topics that I'm most fascinated with. And I just been waiting for the right time to air it, and it was funny. I was picking a date coming up, and then that's when we became in contact with one another. And I seen the film, and I'm like, no way. I'm like, what's the chance of that? I'm like, that's cool. It just fits. Synchronicity sometimes are, a path that you have to follow as well. So I always follow the synchronicities of life. But
I thought it would be fun. I thought it would be fun to, and you're absolutely right. The synchronicity of that is pretty wild. Your next show is Black Eyed Kids. I thought it'd be fun in this film to try to combine lures. We hear, if you're a fan of this type of stuff, then you've probably explored or delved into some of the things that you've heard over the years. And, we hear about, Area 51 is obviously one of the biggest and most known events. So it's a UFO crash, so that's one type of lure that we could look at. But abductions and crop circles and the idea of maybe seeing something out of the corner of your eye, something at the window, something, having a dream of an abduction type experience or something that might lend toward an abduction, or BEKs, which is another completely unexplained phenomenon that could be either alien, it could be paranormal, it could be somewhat of a mix of the two. It's just another one of those things that people can't explain. And I thought it was fun, or would be fun, and obviously that's what I did. I thought it'd be fun to kind of combine a lot of those different things into one movie and point to the sky on all of the explanations.
No, and you did that. And I mean, whenever the part in the film, whenever that you come across that, I certainly sat back and I'm like, oh yeah, he just did that. He just did that. So that's cool, because like I said, that's a topic that a lot of people have been really wanting to hear coming up. It's something that fascinates me, and it's something that's happened over decades of time. And all over the world by multiple people, all with very, very similar stories. You know, and it can't be explained. And what the hell is it, or what are they? And that's interesting. And it comes along with a lot of activity, like you said, because if you're someone who follows the paranormal, a lot of times there is UFO sightings, there is other strange activity in the area, and one of the most common places I can think of is the Bridgewater Triangle in Massachusetts, where there is a big section of land that makes a triangle that multiple alien visitations, sightings, spacecraft, aliens themselves, cryptids, ghosts, Bigfoot, I mean, everything you can think of in that side of things has been spotted in the woods and around this area, but they're constantly seeing UFOs, and it's like it's all happens to be there. And I think that helps bring other things out for some reason, because whatever these things are, whatever energies they give off, other beings interact with it. Are they connected? Maybe they're not. Maybe they are. We don't know.
Right. Well, it is really wild to have a place that becomes a hotbed too, you know, like the Mothman prophecies.
Oh yeah.
You know, when you have something that you could point to where there's this time, you know, it's like the Bermuda Triangle to an extent. Is there a time where events just kind of circulate around one place? And that is a very odd phenomenon as well, and that's happened throughout history. And who knows if that lends to real long history and Stonehenge and the pyramids, and you know why people may have been building you know, sites that they're trying to pay homage to at one time or another. You know, it's just fun stuff. I mean, this is why this topic is so fun, because it's like an onion, you know, it just keeps going and going.
It just keeps going. And the thing is, even if you've only ever seen the top couple layers, it's fascinating. As you start peeling into it, though, I'll tell you what, it gets deep. And I mean, you mentioned the Bermuda Triangle, and I was watching a documentary, and on the other side of the world, on the shores of Japan, I believe it was, in the exact same coordinates as the Bermuda Triangle, there is another triangle that ships, planes, people have went missing. It's almost the exact same scenario as the Bermuda Triangle, located in the same coordinates, just on the opposite side of the planet.
Right.
And it's very strange. Why is that? And then you have areas like the Bridgewater Triangle, another triangle, that all these things keep happening. So there's something strange going on there. In the ocean, they've already found, over that way in Japan, they found a temple underwater that the columns and the cement work were so monstrous that they don't know how anyone could have built it. It's past the Great Pyramids. It's beyond that now. And it's so far down that it would have either been made underwater, which they couldn't possibly begin to explain how that would happen, or it was so old that it was before the water levels had risen that high, and they calculated if that's true, then this pyramid would have been built, or this column would have been built before the Neanderthals even walked the face of the planet.
It's had to predate our civilization into another civilization.
To a completely civilization, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's very advanced too, so it's pretty wild. And I always love to hear this topic. So
it's funny. I'm working on a television concept. We're pitching this television series in a few months, and I'm working with a couple of partners. But it's into that idea, but forward into the future.
Okay.
If we could be one of those ancient civilizations that you might be able to find a trace of maybe thousands of years from now, or even tens of thousands or millions of years from now.
And I've thought of that before, where, you know, what if everything we believe, what if the constructs of which our lives were built on were all falsehoods, because we were told that we, you know, came from Neanderthals, and this is how it was, and this is X, Y, and Z, and what we don't realize is this all was here before it's got wiped clean. We started, and eventually we're going to get wiped clean, and there's going to be another culture that replaces us, and we're going to be the thing that they don't hear about because we never even existed.
Yeah, we're just another cycle of intelligent life.
Exactly. So definitely great concepts. I can't wait to see what you come out with that, and you have to keep us posted.
Crazy. would constantly just frighten your audience,
And that's it. My audience lives for it, so they certainly are going to have a good time with that. And as we were saying, you did do justice, and one of the things I wanted to backpedal to is you had mentioned 2 specific movies that resonated with me, because I believe the first one of both movies really struck chords with people, and first and foremost being Blair Witch Project. When that came out, that just changed the whole found footage. I mean, that was one of the original, it really stood out to people, but that was it. I mean, the way that they portrayed that, whether you liked it or not, as a found footage film, they killed it. I mean, the way it ended and everything, you were disturbed, you thought about it, you're like, how the hell does it end like that? Like, what? And it struck a chord with you, and it stayed, and then Paranormal Activity certainly did that. Now, I know that they have quite a few of them now, and they're all good, but the first one, whenever you first seen it, you're like, wow, now that was pretty dope. I really liked that.
And like you said, Blair Witch put found footage on the map. There was people kind of tinkering with it in earlier years. I had seen some stuff done in the 70s and stuff like that, but Blair Witch put found footage on the map. It was the first time that anybody was seeing found footage in a mass market, that you were actually going to the movie theater and watching a film. And that film was done, like you said, whether you liked it or not, it was done so well, and it stuck to being found footage. It never pulled away from being found footage. And you fall into the belief after a while that you're watching something real, and that is horrifying. And the way that it ends, I saw that in the theater, and I was, I remember just being like, wow, that was really disturbing.
Well, and the way they captured it, it really made, like you said, it made you believe. Like, you're watching, you're like, damn, like, is this a movie? Is this really happening? Am I really watching found footage right now, and the director's messing with me? Like, what is happening?
Yeah, I know. It was really frightening. And Paranormal probably didn't suspend that belief as much, and it probably felt a little more campy, and but it was so good. And there was just one scene in that was just horrifying, where I think it was the wife was standing above the bed of the husband while he was sleeping, and it just starts kind of time lapsing. Hours are passing, and the person's just standing above the bed, just twitching ever so slightly. And I just thought, man, that is horrifying image that has stuck with me since.
Yeah, I mean, that's the stuff that makes your hair, raise on the back of your neck, and it kind of sticks with you. And you want those moments. And I mean, and you give that. Even with this, there's moments throughout it that it kind of threw me off, and I'm like, well, that was different. And I'm like, that kind of stuck with me. But I can't say anything, folks. So if you're wanting to know what those moments are, you make sure you check out the movie, because we're not ruining it for you. And it's something all you guys should be checking out anyways.
Somebody said to me that a film is about moments. And if you watch a film, because there's been times where I've watched films and I said, oh, that film was terrible. And then I wind up talking about it later on. There's a moment that just keeps haunting me or whatever. And so somebody had told me after they watched my film, they said, there's a lot of good moments, and a film is made up of moments, I'm like, all right, cool, man. Hopefully we pulled it off,
There's some moments that stuck with me that I never have seen before, and it's surprisingly, I mean, I've had accounts of people calling and tell us stories of similar things. I have seen pictures of actual evidence, but as far as a movie, no. And one of those would be the cloud formation that you guys showed throughout it. I love that. I loved that concept. Cool. I'm like, wow. I'm like, well, that's different. I didn't really think of that before.
Yeah.
That's smart, man. You're thinking on your toes, and I like it. So if you're listening out there, folks, make sure you do check it out. Why don't you tell us where we can find it at, since we've been talking about it for a little bit?
Case 347 is available this week on iTunes, Fandango, FlixSpling, Vimeo On Demand, and Google Play. So hopefully next week we're also on Vudu and Amazon, whatever Amazon's streaming service is. But I'm waiting to hear from the studio on those releases. So awesome. Right now we just stick to what we know. We're on iTunes, FlixSpling, Fandango, Google Play, and Vimeo On Demand.
It's hard to even say these things anymore, because people even ask me, they're like, what are you on, man? I'm like, hold on a second.
Some really obscure name, yeah.
Because it's like with the radio, there's Deezer, there's like another one called Weezer, there's Castbox, Chromebox, or something. So when I'm asking, it's just like you're saying the same name over and over again.
Squeaker.
It's just like, you know what, man? Whatever sites are out there, I'm on it. Just check them out.
Yeah, exactly.
But
hopefully people find us.
I think they will, and I think if you get on Amazon, if you can land that one, that'll be really great for you guys too, because they're one. I think everything's just called Prime now. Like, I don't think they really have separate things anymore. Like, Prime's taken over. It started out as we can give you 2-day mail or 3-day. I think it was 3-day at that point. We're the fastest mail out there, 3 days, and you can listen to music. Right. And then it's like, now we offer ebooks, and now we offer, everything you can imagine. We give you delivery in 6 hours. We have a black market section you can buy whatever you want on. It's, but wow, it's yeah. Yeah, I'm joking. I'm Amazon. I don't mean you actually have a black market. Please, folks, don't try looking up Amazon black market.
You can order kidneys. You can get whatever you need.
Whatever you need, 2-hour delivery. It's at your doorstep.
Yeah.
But no, it's crazy how big that they've grown, and I know that I watch a lot of films on there because I actually have that in my other room plugged in the Amazon Fire Stick, which gives you everything. Mm-hmm. It's pretty amazing. That really was a crusher for the industry of series and things. Really took a hit, like most cable companies, and everything's really in the last several years kind of went away from most regular stations and kind of switched over to being on Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime, because that's kind of the new wave of watching film.
Being an app rather than a channel. Yeah,
exactly. What's your thoughts on that now that we actually kind of segued into that? What do you think about the kind of the change in tide where it's not go out and buy a DVD anymore or watch a cable station? It's more or less everything's on demand. We need it and we need it now.
I honestly love it. I think it's really, for people like us, rather than having this conversation on a traditional, FM channel, we have the ability to have this radio conversation on demand, in a way, and we get to see content. It with every positive, I guess there's a negative as well. There's such a saturation now of content. You go on to TikTok or YouTube or any of these things, and people are just hitting you with content all the time. So you kind of have to sort through more. But I think like anything else, when there's a massive change in the way that people are consuming content, it also gives people an ability to have their content be seen. So somebody who might not have been able to get a film made through the major studios is now able to get a film made like myself and then have it, get out to the platforms, So I think it's a good thing, for me at least. I'm sure there's, like I said, I'm sure there's a positive. I'm sure there's a negative to every positive, but I'm happy about it.
We get both answers on there, but honestly, I think it's the new era tech, artsy gold rush, so to speak, because, as you said, there's a lot of gold out there to find, but there's also a lot of trash out there that you have to sift through to get that. And it's just digging and digging until you find that golden nugget and you say, wow, I just found an amazing movie or an amazing artist. So that's great that these new platforms give footing for anyone to make it. But unfortunately, now you do have 10 times the opponents to try to kind of stand up against. But as anything, that's the way that it is. It has to be a challenge. And as a consumer, I think it should be. I mean, if everything I listen to is awesome, that's cool. But it wouldn't make you appreciate those really awesome moments as much as you do. So whenever I watch 10 bad movies and I'm like, I've lost faith in found footage or I lost faith in any type of movie, and then you come across a gem like Case 347 and you watch it and you're like, well, shit, okay, it happened, and that's what I appreciate. But if everything was good, it wouldn't stand out. You know what I mean? So you have to have the bad to really make you appreciate the good.
It's true, and it's funny because some of these, obviously look at the success of Netflix, right? Netflix was kind of a fringe thing at one time, and then they really, I think, created the market in a big way for people to shift, to make the cable cutters to become a thing that became more popular and it's becoming more and more popular. And obviously, I think the younger generations are more apt to find their content in a non-traditional way, historically non-traditional. And that's where the push is happening. And it seems like that's where the innovation is happening as well. So you're finding really cool shows that you would never see greenlit on traditional networks. And then, like we said, there's always that turn on that flip side. Now Netflix is spending $17 billion a year or something really insane on creating content. And what was at one time, I think, one of the top tier content creators, it seems like their content is even starting to kind of water down, where you're like, you could watch 10 Netflix originals and only really be like, oh, wow, that one was awesome,
Yeah, it's great. Like you said, it is a double-edged sword because it's giving opportunity, and maybe you'll be one of those, not you, but I'm saying in general, maybe someone out there, you'll be that next crappy show, unfortunately, but
Totally.
you still got your dream out there, and you're like, well, hell yeah, I got my show played. But it's kind of part of another downside to that, I think, is with everyone being able to get everything that they want so quickly and so on demand, that it starts to kind of change the perception and culture from a personality standpoint, because everyone kind of expects life to just cater to them. If I want it, I press a button and it's mine. And it does change. We don't think about that a lot, but if you wanted a movie years ago, well, shit, I had to go climb in the car. I had to drive to Blockbuster. You know what? I'm so pumped to watch this. I walk in, guess what? They rented out the movie. There is no movies left. So then you have to wait. That no one will understand those little moments. And though they may have sucked to us at the time, I would never take that back for anything, because the feeling of going and the anticipation of getting the VHS tape and coming back and putting it into the VCR or the DVD, if it was in the DVD decade, where those were great feelings. You know what I mean? And now it's gone. Where you fast forward another 10 years and there's probably not going to be DVDs or CDs. I mean, I know my newest car I just bought. And most cars now don't have CD players, and that's a crazy thought. That's like, oh, you don't need discs anymore. It's just on demand, buddy. Just hit the on demand button.
Right. I can't even tell you. That's how sad it is. I can't even tell you if my car does or not.
See, that's what I'm saying. They got you, brother. You're already brainwashed.
I know. I'm plugged into Sirius now because they give you that for 6 months for free.
That's
but
it.
It is funny. I'm resonating completely with what you're saying. We used to wait so long for a movie release. We used to wait so long for a theatrical release. You'd be saying, "Oh my God, the new Batman movie is coming out," or there'd be these mega summer blockbusters that you waited for months.
Oh yeah,
and the same thing for the DVD releases. You waited for so long, and we don't have that anymore. I'm guilty of it too, because I'll finish a series. I mean, I was a big Game of Thrones fan, regardless of how that ended. And as soon as that's done, you're looking. Game of Thrones was the biggest fantasy series ever. Nobody's ever put that much money and effort into something like that. So for people that enjoy that stuff, for people that love fantasy the way that we do, it was kind of the best series of all time.
Yeah,
and as soon as it ended, I'm turning and saying, "Where's the next one? Who's putting out the next one?"
And that is it. I mean, and that's the sad thing. And we have some comments coming in here. Exactly. Instant gratification has changed the market immensely. And yes, it has, Patrick. It is, you finish it, you love the show, and it's doing an injustice almost to certain film and to certain industries, because that to me is like reading a very good book. You finish this amazing, mind-blowing novel. No, you should never automatically that same night or even the next day pick up another book and start reading. You should give a couple days for it to linger in your head, to fully pick up on the things you missed and appreciate that art form for 100% what it was. And then you say, oh my God, I picked up on things after I was done reading it that I didn't catch, but my subconscious mind picked them up. You don't have that now. It's like, okay, it's done, right to the next show, right to the next show. And then you start to look back and then you say, how did that show even end? I don't even remember the ending of the series.
Yeah, exactly. And like Patrick's saying, the instant gratification is changing the market, because as you're saying, you're no longer giving what was so great its kudos, because you're looking to move on immediately. And
yeah,
it's sad. It's sad. So you're but again, like I said, I'm guilty of it, because
we
I will
all are.
watch
It's our guilty pleasures.
I will watch an incredible movie. I'll watch an incredible movie, and it might be too early, so I'll put something crappy on to follow it. And then that's what I go to bed with. I go to bed with whatever the last crappy movie I saw was for the night.
You're watching someone's broken dream as you fall asleep.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm watching somebody's butchered project, after an Academy Award winning film that I watched too early in the day,
They're so pumped when they get their report back showing their sales and their streams, and they're like, "Oh my God, man. Someone's watched my movie 7 times so far, and it's the same guy. It's you, and it's your fall asleep movie every night."
Yeah, exactly.
So that's...
Hey, man, there's something to that too, right? What is that when you watch a movie it's so great that you could just keep watching it,
And sometimes there's certain type of movies out there. One of my favorite movies ever made is Vanilla Sky with Tom Cruise. And
wow.
And I've watched that movie like 8 times, and it's long as shit too. I mean, it's like 3.5 hours long, and it's every time I watched it, I picked up on hidden things in the movie that no one realizes, and I'm like, wow.
Little Easter eggs.
Yeah, little Easter eggs that are hidden everywhere, and I'm like, this movie is twisting my mind in ways that I can't handle right now. But you gotta love those movies whenever they hide it in there. But as we said, it is a double-edged sword for the fact that it is a great thing, because without it, so many people wouldn't be discovered. So many people have gotten chances and became huge stars, became personalities that we would have never found without things like the internet and all the new age era. But it is a shame at the same time, because we do lose a piece of ourself when we can't take time to appreciate the art. We just want to consume it. We love it. It's great. Get it the hell out of here and give me the next one. What else can we have now? So
I think that's one of the tough things about the digital platform, just as a whole. When we lost film is such a hard thing, and it lasts. Even the jump from black and white to color. Black and white film lasted for so much longer. It had a preserved quality to it, and then we moved into color film, which didn't last as long, and then we moved into digital, and it just becomes really disposable. And now that we have content that's being created, I would love to know what the numbers are. If we could just kind of guess, back in the day when film just started, or television just started rather, you probably had a couple of shows on the air, and that's turned into now we have hundreds, across platforms. How many shows? There's shows on right now that we don't have platform access to. You might say, like, "Oh my God, have you seen the Man in the High Tower," or whatever that show is? And you're like, "No, I don't have that platform." So there's platforms that are showing really great content right now that we're not even seeing. Where back in the day, everyone knew I Love Lucy. Everyone knew. I'm going to jump eras here, but everyone knew Cheers. Everyone knew, the original V series, because there was only network television and there was only a few options.
Yeah, and everybody had something to share, and now it's massive how much stuff is out there you can't get through. And as you said, it can really segregate people, where maybe you're on a budget and you can only afford that $10 a month streaming platform, one of them. And then you say, "Well, I got Hulu, and I love so many shows on there." And then someone tells you about this amazing series that you're like, "Oh, I would love that. How do I find it?" "Oh, it's on Netflix." And then you're like, "Oh, I can't afford Netflix." So then you're like, "Well, you know what?" So then you switch from Hulu to Netflix, and then as soon as you get Netflix, someone's like, "Man, this new Amazon Prime show is amazing." You just can't stay with it, and that's a shame that they do that to people.
There's too many platforms.
Well, there's Gaia TV, which I have, which is a big spiritual thing. I mean, it has a lot of a woke type material and awakened material for the thinker, and I love it. But you can't find that anywhere else. They had to make us our own community, because they're like, we can't put this on these other platforms. We got our own platform for it.
And it is sad. This is a conversation I've brought up many times, and it gets to be a little more of a social commentary, which I don't like to do publicly. But you look at the history of going to the movies, and the history. My family grew up. My family's from Harlem and the Upper West Side of New York originally, which were historically very poor neighborhoods, Hell's Kitchen in Harlem. And they used to be able to go to the movies for a dime or whatever and watch a couple hours of content that a lot of effort went into, and that was their escape from the poverties and the realities of what was going on in the world at the time during the Depression. And you had baseball games, and you had things that regular people could attend. Now you go to a baseball game, you take your wife and kid to a baseball game, and you're going to be stripped, or you just go to the movies. I'm in Hollywood, I'm in Los Angeles. the movies are $18,
That's ridiculous.
And then
man.
again, these platforms, so it's not for the regular person as much as it used to be, and that's sad to an extent,
No, it certainly is. I mean, it's a hot topic that we talk about from time to time. So I'm glad we could kind of, shoot back and forth some different ideas that we had going on. Now, I have a question I wanted to ask you. A couple important ones that I ask a lot of guests that are in the field of making artistic material, and you certainly, as a film director, I would love to hear what your opinion is. If you had all the time back, all the hours writing, thinking, brainstorming, redrafting, filming, everything, if you had it all back, what would you put it into? If you had all those hours back, what one other thing would you pick to put that time into?
Rather than creating art?
Rather than, well, it can be art still, but rather than film, if you had all that time back from film to put into one other passion in life, no matter what it might be, what would you do?
Whew. It'd be tough. I mean, I still dabble in photography a little bit in my own time, kind of as an exercise for me to get away from film and writing and shift my mind into a different capacity. But I spend honestly a lot of my time hiking and getting away from. I've only ever lived in New York and LA. I've only ever lived in these really large population communities. So I try to get away from people and find some solitude. So that's where I spend a real large amount of my time when I'm not working. As far as putting that effort and that time into something else, I love passing things on to people. I love teaching, and any opportunity that I have and time that I can give to doing that, maybe into inspiring other people to create and focus their own energies and help people kind of find peace of mind, because I know there's a lot of people struggling in the world. So I like to give time to that as well.
I really resonate with that. That's actually something that I have a big piece of my time involved with, is teaching other people arts and helping get them out there, as I mentioned before. And I run a company. There's just shy of 40 of us that are under my company, with artists and models and graphic designers and things of that nature. And we really push them, and I'm always helping a lot of other people that aren't on the label because I love teaching. I love being a part of that. I am also really involved in the spiritual side of things, and recently have taken on a journey that I'm starting to teach a select group that's going to continue to grow, obviously, but it'll be selective. The spiritual side of things, to help get a grip on their life that maybe aren't where they want to be in life, or maybe feel that they're on the wrong path and losing hope, and teaching them new life-changing things that can help them keep their mind focused, can help stay motivated, not let all the toxins of this world pollute them, and kind of wash that clean so that they can be the best them that they can be in an artistic sense. So I definitely resonate with that. If I had a lot more time, I would probably focus solely on that.
I think it's great because obviously you're feeling the benefits of that. When you do that, it energizes you. And I think that's maybe one of the secrets to life. I certainly don't have the answers to that, but I do find that kind of if it feels good, do it type of thing, in a positive way. If you're doing something and it feels like it's a negative drain on you, or the people that you're surrounding yourself with feel like a negative drain on you, I feel like you should naturally try to steer away from that, even as enticing as the situation might seem at the moment. And the things that energize you, the people that energize you, the people that inspire you, whatever that means, and also in a positive way, those are the things that you should probably be leaning yourself toward. And that's what I've tried to base the second half of my life on.
It's a great growing step. I mean, when you get to that point that at first you really focus on your career and you're like, I got to get myself there. And if you're one of those people that find time and start to help other people get themselves there, then you're like, you know what? At least for me personally, I'm like, I actually find myself more ecstatic when I see someone that I've been helping get that big break or big moment than I do when I get my own or have had my own. Because I'm like, you know what? I helped shape that person. They might not have ever gotten there, but we gave the motivation to get there. And look, now they did it. Everyone can do it. You just have to be able to grab the reins and really guide yourself in. And sometimes it just needs a helping hand to make you grab hold.
And that's just a testament to your character. Anybody who feels that someone else's win is their own win, they're truly the ones winning in life, because once you realize how much of a community we are, and it's easy to forget that. We've become so digitally based and app-based, and, we're communicating most of the time through an app or through a text or whatever, and you become to feel, you can feel very isolated, and I feel bad for kids that are growing up in this era because of that. They don't know what it's like to get home from school and go out with all of your friends and explore the world. And so, I think people can forget how community-based we should be. And when you're working in a collaborative situation, like I said, the thing that drove me to the film industry in the first place was being on a set and seeing that collaborative process, seeing 100 people working toward a singular goal. And the more we think that way, I personally believe, and I'm still creating artistic collectives where we're trying to push a group of writers, a group of directors, where people are normally just looking out for their own individual success. What can we create as a group? So, hats off to you, man.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. Like I said, it's something that I take pride in and I'll continue to do. And it allows me to meet great people like yourself. So it's a win-win in my book. But I have two more questions for you and then we'll finish out for the night. If you had to give advice, and we kind of just sort of touched base on that, but if you had to give advice to someone just starting out that has no idea how to get started, what to do in the film industry where they have scripts, they've been writing, they think they're good, but who do I contact? Who do I show? How do I get my feet in the water? What would you tell them as far as a piece of advice that you could say as someone who's lived it?
There's definitely no right answer. There's no one way that people attain success. I think artistically, the most important thing is to constantly be creating, constantly be pushing yourself. I do believe that there's some people have talked about a 10,000 hour theory in life to become a master at something. So you write a script, have you put 10,000 hours into writing scripts? I have. I have not put 10,000 hours into filmmaking. I've only made, 2 half-hour short films and a web series and a feature film. It didn't take me 10,000 hours to create those things. So I'm not a master at that. And I do believe that mastery takes that level of time. Now, how should someone approach becoming a professional in the art that they're pursuing? Like I said, I think it is just about continuously doing, always writing a new script, trying to make people aware that you're doing what it is that you're doing. Share it with people. If there is a peer out there to try to share your content with, that's kind of what I've always done. I met people when I moved to LA 15 years ago. Some of us were sleeping on the same floor. As I said, some of the guys that I work with now, we're sleeping on the same floor of the same house I was sleeping on, and we've all just helped each other move forward. You work on each other's projects, you read each other's scripts, you try to, whoever's the best at it, you try to get that person to give you some notes and learn from each other. And I really think that if filmmaking is your goal, whatever your goal is, you have to do it. You can't be waiting for people to give you permission to do it. If you want to be a filmmaker, make a film. It doesn't cost as much as you would think it would to make a short, and especially in this day and age when you could be doing stuff with your phone and you could be posting that to different avenues. I mean, even TikTok, to an extent, with the way that it's set up to, make cuts and stuff like that, it is filmmaking, so kids are getting a grasp of that at a young age. But yeah, just continuously do. And I think if you're good, you'll get something into a film festival. If you can get something into a film festival, you can get some attention. Kevin Smith, who I don't know if what the demographic of your listeners are, but Kevin Smith did a movie called Clerks. Was one of the first movies he did.
Oh yeah.
He borrowed $25,000 from his parents to make a black and white film. That film went viral and became the thing that gave him his deal with Miramax. So, Rodriguez, made his film for $6,000. There's people out there that did a lot with a little. And those are the people that inspire me. So I would love to pass that torch on to others. And like I said, it doesn't matter what your genre is. We are in a digital age now where if you're drawing and you're posting, people are going to see it. If you're taking photographs and you're posting, people are going to see it. That didn't exist 20 years ago. And if you're making little shorts and you can get that up on any sort of platform, then people are going to see it. And if it's good, people are going to continue to push you forward. And if it's shit, keep working at it. because it'll get better.
And that's it. You use that shit to continue to grow into something that's not. And take criticism. That's one thing that people can't take these days is criticism's good.
Absolutely.
Let someone tell you that your project sucks, and let them tell you why. You might not agree with them, but you can certainly plant that seed in your mind. Don't let it, shot you away from what you're doing, but plant that seed and say, you know what, they got a good point, and I probably do need to switch that up a little bit. If you take little pieces of everybody's, critiques, you're going to ultimately be a better artist at the end of the day. So please take Chris's advice on those things. I think everything he said there is very important. To finish it out, why don't you tell me, if I was someone new to come across you, meet you out and about, and showed an interest in film, can you tell me how you would pitch your film to me, your new film?
So you're a viewer? You're a potential viewer?
Yeah, I'm a potential viewer. I want you to sell me on it. Why should I watch Case 347?
I think Case 347 is a new look at the found footage genre, and while simultaneously really abiding by the rules that found footage was meant to be. So I think if you like alien conspiracy, if you like the abduction topic, if you're looking for a fun journey and a little bit of a tickle of the brain there on what's possible, and possibly be a little scared at the end of it, this is the film for you.
Well, perfect. You heard it, folks. I wanted to recap on that. So if you were tuning in, didn't catch the beginning, that is what you can expect with this wonderful new film. If you've missed the show and are just tuning in now for the last hour, we have been kicking it with Chris Wax. He's a director from Los Angeles who has recently put out a film called Case 347. It is available on most digital platforms, and hopefully soon it's going to be available on all digital platforms. Please take the hour and 15 minutes to pull up this film. Watch it, support it. It just dropped in the past week. He could use your support. Tell your friends, share it around. One quick 3-second share can help change someone's life. So make sure you do that and support this project, support everything else Chris has coming up. As we talked about earlier, and we're not going to share with you just yet, he has a lot more things on the horizon to watch out for. Other than that, Chris, I really want to thank you for coming on our show tonight. It was a pleasure to get to interview you, to get to talk about the film and just shoot the breeze a little bit about the industry. And I would love to have you back on the show down the road again sometime.
I would love that. It's so great talking to you.
Well, listen, you have a wonderful night, and we'll talk to you again soon.
You do the same. Take care.
You too. All right, folks, you have a wonderful night, and we'll catch you on Monday here on Celestial Oddities. Have a great night, folks.